Standing high on a lonely mountain peak under a blazing sunset sky, the legendary martial arts master looked down at the vast landscape below and whispered that it was small. As his hand reached out toward the glowing sun, our fellow wondered aloud if the Jianghu was really this small. It made sense he felt that way because he had already crushed everyone in his path. The former Martial Arts Alliance leader, who had started the Great Orthodox Demonic War, was sliced down in one single strike. Even the Black Dragon King, the absolute apex of the unorthodox faction, had literally wet himself in pure terror. Even the master of the soul-destroying pavilion, the shadow mastermind who hid behind the scenes, was left slumped on the cold ground in total defeat. With a long, heavy sigh, the Grand Master realized there was no one left who dared to challenge him, making him feel incredibly lonely. Standing proudly as the wind whipped his hair, Qi Yurang declared that throughout heaven and earth, he alone was supreme as the Heavenly Demon. But right in the middle of his flex, a violent bolt of purple lightning cracked through the sky. The martial artist looked up in shock as his face lit up in purple light. A massive, swirling cosmic portal opened right above him, defying all laws of nature. Before he could even react, the mysterious energy grabbed him, lifting him off the ground as he stared up and muttered about the sky. The dark void portal spun violently in front of him, releasing powerful rings of energy. As the whipping wind tore at his clothes, the Grand Master glared at the anomaly, but the dark energy tendrils suddenly lashed out and grabbed him. He was dragged kicking and screaming into the black hole, yelling out for the bastard to let him go. Inside the portal, his eyes glowed purple with absolute fury as he demanded to know where they came from and who sent them. He admitted in his mind that the opponent possessed a tremendous aura, and he never expected such an opponent to exist in this world. Squeezing his eyes shut in agonizing pain, he let out a guttural scream as the sheer force ripped the peak of the mountain apart. The rift exploded in a blinding flash of blue and purple light, shattering the night sky. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. In a stormy forest, a dirty hand held up a massive, sizzling chunk of cooked meat as a voice wondered if it was cooked enough. The wild-looking old man with a massive white beard bit down hard into the food, sitting on top of a giant dead dragon beast. He immediately spat it out, grumbling that it tasted awful. Suddenly, a massive explosion shook the distant mountains, causing him to look over with a sigh. The Grand Master muttered that it was just another commotion on this bizarre island where a whopping 10 years had passed. A violent blast of energy shook the cliffs, showcasing how all 4 seasons coexisted on this single island. High-grade elixirs were scattered like simple pebbles on the side of the road, and the skies were filled with flying dragons, making it an island teeming with bizarre monsters. Besides himself, monsters were the only living things on the island, and there was only one rule to live by. Survival of the fittest was the absolute law. Jumping off the bloody dead skull of a giant lizard beast, the old man recalled falling onto this island 10 years ago. He was clearly the ultimate predator here, but looking up at the sky, he sighed and asked himself what the point of being strong even was. The loneliness was constant, and the food was terrible. Walking across the misty water, leaving purple footsteps behind, he admitted that he missed it all. He remembered the left and right messengers of light, Nag and Chilbok, whom he always bickered with, and even the 4 heavenly kings and his loyal followers who competed for his favor. He truly missed them all. He recalled trying to escape the island once, but it did not take long to realize that it was completely impossible. Beyond the blue sea surrounding the island, only a void-filled sea of nothingness writhed endlessly. Just as he looked back down at the forest, a bright blue flash of light caught his eye. He paused, wondering what that was, as something shiny suddenly beamed up. Leaping down from the cliffs with insane speed, the veteran landed gracefully on the forest floor. He stared ahead, murmuring that this was fascinating as he walked toward a glowing white monolith hidden in the trees. Touching the smooth metallic surface, he noted that it did not seem to be natural at all. Suddenly, a giant glowing red circle of light surrounded him, making him gasp in surprise. His face filled with panic as he wondered if it was some kind of mechanism. Metal walls instantly slid together, trapping him inside the glowing white obelisk. The door sealed shut with a heavy click, leaving him in a completely white room. Standing inside, the old man shouted in confusion, asking what in the world this was. A metal door suddenly slid open, and he peeked through, cautiously asking if anyone was there. He walked into a modern high-tech control room, equipped with a desk, microphone, and monitors. Touching a bright green wall, he walked over to a luxurious gaming chair and sat down, noting that it was quite comfortable. Resting his chin on his fist, he looked at the blank black monitors and muttered about a wall tightly packed with black stone slabs. His finger hovered over a glowing blue power button on the computer case as he wondered what this shiny stone was. He pressed it, and the monitors instantly flashed with a blinding blue light that made him shield his eyes. Text popped up on the screen, asking him to choose between modern language and Central Plains language. Staring intensely, he questioned why the Central Plains language was on there, and tapped the screen. A cute green and pink mascot with a winking eye appeared, welcoming him to Quitch and claiming it was a broadcast that was with you anytime, anywhere. The Grandmaster stared in absolute shock, his face illuminated by the screen as he asked what this was. He realized there was a real person on the screen as he scrolled through various live streams and chat comments. One stream featured a smug red-haired young man in modern clothes holding up a peace sign with a title announcing the start of an infinite challenge. The streamer looked at the camera and mocked martial artists, claiming they were nothing special. Looking at the screen, Chi Yurang wondered if the boy was a foreigner. The streamer then announced he would start the 50,000 cookie mission right away, wrapping his hands in roaring flames. He pointed his flaming finger up with an arrogant smile, prompting chat to laugh about the martial artist being doomed. The streamer snapped his fingers, and a massive pillar of fire engulfed the martial artist on screen. The martial artist screamed in agony as he burned, while the chat joked about the attack. A donation alert popped up showing someone named Mohu donated 10,000 cookies, commenting that magic was so OP and that martial artists could not hold their ground. The smug wizard smirked and taunted that if they were mad, they should just use guns like the cyberpunk guys. Deeply analytical, our boy wondered what kind of magic that was, noting that it felt different from yang energy and definitely did not belong to the martial world. He leaned in close to the screen, shouting at the foreigner to answer him and explain where this place was and who they were. Suddenly, the screen switched to a fork picking up a glistening piece of delicious food. The next stream showed a cute girl in a witch hat eating a piece of dongpo pork, making the chat go wild. The Grandmaster stared in absolute disbelief, whispering the name of the dish as he realized it was his absolute favorite food. At the sight of cooked food for the first time in 10 years, his parched salivary glands went completely crazy. He slammed his hands on the desk, screaming frantically at the monitor, asking how she was eating that and begging her to give him some. He grit his teeth, remembering that for 10 years he had only eaten tasteless monster meat. Desperate, he typed furiously on the keyboard, wondering how to operate the machine and how to communicate with them. The screen transitioned to a stream featuring a grey-haired man in a purple suit and green vest named Snowwagon, who introduced himself with a peace sign. Snowwagon announced that today they would learn about food warp, a technology used a lot in daily lives. He explained that they should start with the great cataclysm that occurred 10 years ago, where worlds from different dimensions merged into one. He noted that currently a total of 4 worlds had merged, including the fantasy world of magic, the cyberpunk world of advanced science, the world of martial artists, and the modern universe protected by hunters. The host smiled, calling it a time of great chaos, as the screen showed dragons attacking modern cities. He explained that rifts had opened and many people died from magical beasts, and they would have been wiped out if the 4 worlds had not joined forces. A viewer named Jamin donated 10,000 cookies, asking the teacher to stop reviewing and get to the main topic. Snowwagon bowed in gratitude and used his phone to order an Americano delivery using the food warp. He explained that warp technology was a magical engineering product combining cyberpunk, modern science, and fantasy magic. Thanks to this, they could warp objects, though warping living beings was still impossible due to various problems. A cup of coffee instantly materialized inside the glowing warp machine on his desk. Grabbing the coffee, the host smiled and wrapped up the video, asking viewers to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. The martial arts master gasped, realizing this was his golden ticket. He figured out that he could earn wealth through this broadcast and get food sent directly to him. Since everything was already set up in the room, he decided to start right away without delay. He launched his stream under the title of Heavenly Demon's Live Broadcast, but looking at his reflection on the screen, he stared in shock. Stroking his dirty white beard, he realized he looked like a complete beggar with his disheveled hair and tattered clothes. A notification popped up saying a viewer named Deer had entered, but the viewer instantly left after commenting that the old man scared him. Left with 0 viewers, Chi Yurang sat in silent despair. Another viewer named Oetri entered and asked if he was really the Heavenly Demon. Clenching his fist, the master stood up proudly and declared that he was indeed none other than the legendary Heavenly Demon. The viewer laughed it off, calling it cringe roleplay, and immediately left the stream. Sitting in the silent room, The old man wondered if the world had truly forgotten him. He gripped his head in despair, repeating his name, but then paused. He recalled that the host said 4 worlds had merged, and since 10 years had passed, it was understandable that people forgot his existence. In this world of survival of the fittest, being forgotten meant death. Resolving himself, his eyes glowed with intense purple energy as he decided to conquer Quitch. He recalled skimming through the entire broadcast popularity rankings while investigating the warp device. Most of the popular streams were about fighting or chatting, and the top ranks were dominated by young, beautiful maidens. He realized no one would want to watch a broadcast of an old man, so he had to capture their attention by any means necessary. Speeding through the forest at night under a blue moon, he sliced a giant minotaur beast in half, making it scream in agony. He ripped out the glowing purple monster core from its chest, deciding that if he was going to do this, he would do it properly. That was the path of the demonic way he envisioned. Standing under the crescent moon, he looked at the massive pile of energy crystals and decided to undergo the body rejuvenation he had put off for so long because it was annoying. He noted that the gem near the monster's heart had a massive amount of condensed energy, while a normal rejuvenation would just return him to his youth. Manipulating this raw energy would allow him to have delicate control over his body. Sitting cross-legged in the grass, he absorbed the purple crystals, letting the massive waves of power wash over him as he warned Quitch to just wait. Meanwhile, a viewer named Small Streamer Hunter 13 was scrolling through Quitch on his PC, noting that finding cute small streamers and showering them with money was the joy of his life. He spotted a newbie stream titled Heavenly Demon Chan's Quitch Conquest Day 1 and entered. On the screen, a gorgeous girl in purple robes bowed gracefully and welcomed him with a polite, traditional tone. The viewer blushed, loving the Gap Mo, and instantly donated 10,000 cookies, asking if she had a donation reaction. The cute girl smiled slyly, whispering the words Heavenly Demon Kitty. Her vibrant blue eyes sparkled as she posed with cute cat paws, thanking him with a sweet meow. The cute anime girl posed with cat paws as the donor screamed in absolute ecstasy, clutching his chest as he declared his love for Heavenly Demon Chan. Grinning smugly with a knowing look, the Grandmaster Chi Yurang was officially reborn as a beautiful girl Heavenly Demon on Quitch, as viewers started flooding into the stream one after another. Back in chat, new viewers immediately flooded into the room, pinging notifications one after another. Chi Yurang, the absolute strongest under the heavens, had officially returned, but this time, the Grandmaster had undergone body rejuvenation. Literally speaking, this legendary technique referred to attaining enlightenment and returning to a youthful body. However, in his case, the veteran did not actually undergo body rejuvenation the exact moment his enlightenment came. He confessed that he found the process highly bothersome and put it off for several years. Thanks to that delay, he ended up developing a rather unique constitution. The massive internal energy he replenished by chewing on the magic stones of demonic beasts allowed him to alter not only his gender, but his body shape, facial features, and even his voice. Ultimately, the absolute strongest under the heavens had birthed the ultimate broadcasting physique. Seeing a chat question asking how old she was, the streamer looked deadpan and bluntly answered that she was 70 years old. The chat instantly erupted with laughter, loving the hilarious roleplay concept. Behind her deadpan expression, she smiled a devious grin, thinking that changing her appearance ensured a great reaction no matter what she said. The master realized that sitting around all day analyzing countless streams and scouring message boards was entirely worth it. Suddenly, a donation alert popped up, showing a user named Sandmole donated 10,000 cookies, demanding another meow reaction. She obliged instantly, pointing a finger up and shouting another thank you meow. She rested her cheek in her hand, watching her feet dangle from the gaming chair, thinking that even this tiny bit of attention was genuinely amusing. After all, the only communication she had over the past 10 years was the agonizing screams of demonic beasts. She flashed another cute cat paw reaction, making viewers complain that their hearts were failing from the Gap Mo. The martial artist asked herself just how long it had been since she actually conversed with someone. The chat was in absolute shambles, crying about the lethal Gap Mo and joking that they were in the land of absolute peak entertainment. Communicating with others for the first time in over 10 years was truly electrifying. When a viewer asked what she meant by electrifying, she got flustered, sweat dropping as she looked away, and insisted it was absolutely nothing. Suddenly, a massive notification flashed, showing her total donation amount hit a whopping 100,000 cookies. She stared with spiral eyes, completely shocked, and admitted it was a massive sum for her very first day. She noted that even though the vast majority was donated by that Nugu excavator guy, her stats showed 31 peak viewers and 11 new followers. She giggled smugly, thinking this would have been completely impossible if she had not become a beautiful girl. Looking at the funds, she realized she had enough money to make her move. She suddenly slammed her fist onto the desk with a massive crash, cracking the wood and terrifying the chat. When viewers asked why she smashed the desk out of nowhere, she raised a flaming purple fist and dramatically announced she was going to do a mukbang now. The chat laughed at her sudden dramatic acting and asked what she wanted to eat. She stared intensely and declared her target was dongpo pork. She licked her lips as saliva dripped, prompting the chat to joke that her taste buds were exactly like an old man's. She insisted that dongpo pork was her absolute favorite. She opened the delivery app to Fire Pork Pavilion, ignoring chat comments asking if girls her age usually preferred sweet tanghulu. She hovered her hand over the mouse, sweating with intense excitement as she clicked yes on the order screen. She thought that while 100,000 cookies was a large sum, she had waited solely for this exact moment. She clicked the mouse and ordered the machine to bring forth the food. The high-tech warp device on her desk hummed and glowed with bright blue light. She stared anxiously, her heart pounding as glowing particles materialized inside the chamber. With a soft chime, a plate of glistening, delicious dongpo pork appeared. Her eyes sparkled with stars as she gasped, screaming that the glorious color and plump texture were driving her absolutely insane. The chat joked about the small portion size and teased her to wipe her drool. She picked up her chopsticks and announced she would take a single bite. Putting the juicy meat into her mouth, she realized this was her first real meal in 10 whole years. As she chewed, tears of pure, unadulterated joy streamed down her face. Sobbing from the sheer deliciousness, she cried out that it was unbelievably tasty. She stuffed her face, chewing wildly, but suddenly began coughing and choking, prompting the chat to ask if she was seriously crying over food. She sniffled and sobbed, insisting it was just far too delicious. The chat laughed at how heartily she ate, joking that you would think she had been eating rotten meat for 10 years. Swallowing her food, she looked embarrassed and apologized, admitting it had been a while since she had real food. A viewer named Chapelmi donated 10,000 cookies, telling her to buy a drink and not to cry. The next day, our hero launched her stream for day 2, welcoming everyone with a calm greeting. She sat with her arms crossed, looking serious, while chat immediately teased her that her eyes were totally swollen from crying. Suddenly, a massive wave of new viewers began entering the chat. She looked surprised, wondering why viewers were flooding in so endlessly. She sweat dropped and offered a confused welcome, watching the viewer count skyrocket to 42. Panicked, she wondered why the count had nearly doubled, while the chat laughed at her confused expression. A donor named Nougat Excavator 13 sent 10,000 cookies, telling her to check out her popular clips. She typed on the keyboard and opened the tab, only to find a clip titled Newbie Streamer's Dongpo Pork Tears, trending at number 98. She stared at her own crying face on screen, sweating in absolute embarrassment. The donor proudly took credit for the clip, and she offered a devious smirk, thanking him and promising to highly praise his hard work. Resting her hand under her chin, she put on a majestic tone, ignoring viewers who asked why she was talking like an ancient master. Suddenly, the warp device chimed. She noted it arrived at the perfect time and showed off her new outfit. Striking a magical girl pose with hearts floating around, she asked how her new robes looked, explaining she bought them with yesterday's donations. The chat went wild over her stylish purple fantasy robes and her cute demeanor. She smirked, thinking that reinvesting in the stream was an excellent decision that yielded great reactions. When chat asked if she was going to eat pork again, she pointed a finger up and announced that today she would be doing a gaming stream. The chat was hyped, asking if they were playing Real Fight. She recalled that after browsing Twitch, she noticed 9 out of 10 gamers played virtual reality. The most popular game among them was Real Fight 99, which completely dominated the platform. When a viewer asked if she had ever played, she honestly replied that it was her very first time. The chat lost its mind, celebrating that they had a pure prime newbie on their hands. She put on the high-tech white VR goggles and permitted their backseating as she logged in. The goggles glowed green as she initialized the matrix. Her avatar materialized in a neon green digital grid, and she gasped in absolute awe. The chat laughed at her wide-eyed, genuine reaction, wondering where she could have possibly lived to have never experienced virtual reality. One viewer joked that she must be a resident of the demonic realm, and she examined her virtual hands in fascination, wondering how this was possible. She thought that if the chat window were not floating next to her, she would have believed she had been teleported again. A system notification welcomed her and announced they would first measure her combat power. She stood still as blue scan lines ran up her body, while viewers guessed her power would be around a 5, considering an average adult male was a 10. The system completed the scan and displayed her combat power as a giant question mark. She stared blankly, and the chat joked that she was a question mark collector. She asked if there was a problem, and the chat screamed that combat power was strictly supposed to be a number between 1 and 100. She shrugged and dismissed it, but the chat insisted it was highly important. A donor named Cherry Oda sent 1,000 cookies, warning her that combat power directly affected the game's difficulty. She touched her chin, learning that higher combat power meant facing multiple monsters at once. She realized she could not ignore this, but since she was unfamiliar with VR principles, she asked if anyone knew how it worked. The chat admitted they did not know either, and she stared blankly, teasing them for their ignorance. A viewer sent 10,000 cookies with a link explaining that Quitch was a mysterious corporation, but the legend Snowwagon had written a post about it. She clicked the link and saw Snowwagon explaining that after the Great Cataclysm merged 4 worlds, the powerhouses fought amongst themselves, causing massive collateral damage and loss of life. To unite humanity, Quitch built an independent virtual reality network, sparking a technological revolution. To prevent real-world fighting, they created the combat power metric, which converted all mana or internal energy into a strict numerical value, though the exact principles remained a secret. Our streamer pointed at the screen and asked if the expert did not actually know either. The chat agreed that Quitch was seriously suspicious, but she crossed her arms and sighed, telling them to summarize such information into 3 lines next time. The system announced the game was successfully installed, and she prepared to enter. Digital boots materialized on her feet as her virtual eye glowed blue, and she was instantly teleported. She opened her eyes to find herself in a massive, beautiful traditional fortress. Wind blowing her hair, she looked around and whispered that it was a nostalgic sight. The system asked if she wanted to play the tutorial, but she dismissed it, claiming she was sick of watching it on stream. She grabbed her shoulder confidently, making chat laugh at her bold personality. When asked if she had ever fought before, her face shifted into a dark, terrifying smirk with glowing purple eyes. She declared that she had absolutely no equals. The chat broke into laughter, asking if she had ever even played. Striking a majestic pose, she proudly admitted she had not, but insisted she was a brilliant fighter. She explained that she just had to deplete the green bar over the opponent's head, which was an incredibly trivial task for her. She decided to warm up her body a little and stomped her foot, creating a massive purple shockwave that shattered the stone tiles. The chat gasped, noticing her perfect martial arts stance and the purple winds howling around her. They wondered if she was using mana, but others corrected that it was internal energy, realizing she possessed incredible talent. Suddenly, a challenge notification popped up from a user named Grandma Handcart Thief. She stared at the screen, and the chat warned her not to accept because the challenger was a notorious troll. She balled her fist, realizing this virtual body only possessed about 30% of her real strength, which was perfect for getting a feel for things. She accepted the challenge, and a blue portal opened. A boot stepped out of the portal, and she noted it smelled like a filthy gunslinger. The spiky-haired troll walked out with a smug grin, calling her an easy target. The countdown began, and the chat lamented that nobody could beat a gun. As the timer hit 0, the gunslinger drew his weapon with blinding speed and fired. He laughed like a psychopath, spamming his clicks, but his face suddenly froze in horror. The chat stared in complete disbelief. Dodging with ease, our boy tilted her head as the bullets missed, leaving purple energy trails in the air. She stood up gracefully and caught a single bullet between her fingers, examining it with starry eyes. She casually dropped the lid, letting it clatter to the ground. The terrified gunslinger shivered in pure panic as the cute girl with twin tails stared him down with a chilling demonic smile, whispering that it was finally her turn. The chat went absolutely wild, questioning if she had seriously caught a bullet with her bare hands, and predicting the real fight gallery would completely blow up. The stream then transitioned to the flashy masked host Snowwagon, who introduced himself with a peace sign as the ultimate busybody. He asked the audience if they had noticed how incredibly rare it was to find a genuine martial artist these days. He explained that after the Great Cataclysm, the sole standard for being considered a good fighter became whether or not you could deal with guns. No matter how long a martial artist trained, a single bullet could end their entire career in an instant. prompting people to wonder why anyone would even bother spending years practicing. Martial arts had absolutely no shortcuts in training, putting once great sects on a direct path to ruin. To even stand a chance against a gunslinger, a person needed at least 10 years of grueling, consistent training, and even then, there was absolutely no guarantee they would reach that level. In this rapidly changing era, people preferred to shave their heads and become punks, or promote themselves to knights rather than waste time on boring martial arts. Because of this, even the strongest sects that survived the cataclysm were constantly worried about annihilation. But Snowwagon warned that the real problem started there, because most magic beasts were not affected by guns at all. Conventional weapons were completely useless against high-ranking beasts, unless the hunters used incredibly expensive, specialized armor-piercing rounds. Ultimately, guns were only effective for bullying other humans, which posed a massive threat to survival since human talent was decreasing every year. Snowwagon wrapped up his explanation by warning everyone to watch out for bullets and signed off. Back in the digital arena, our guy stood silently in the courtyard, her hair blowing in the wind as she analyzed the encounter. She realized that having a gun allowed ordinary people to kill with terrifying ease, making it a sinister object that made people weak and mocked real effort. Furthermore, she realized it was actively killing the legacy of martial arts and decided that could not stand. Taking a single silent step forward, she unleashed a wave of dark energy that shattered the digital chains of the game world. In an instant, the cocky gunslinger collapsed flat on his back, foaming at the mouth and completely knocked out. She stared down at him in confusion, while the chat went wild, asking why the punk had fainted and joking that he had literally wet himself from fear. She wondered why the challenger was so incredibly frail, noting that even the raw recruits of her Sun and Moon divine cult possessed far more grit. She dismissed him as a pathetic thug who relied entirely on a weapon without ever training his internal energy. The chat erupted with excitement, demanding to know who she was and how she performed such an insane feat. Her loyal subject Hakosika13 donated 10,000 cookies, asking if he could upload the clip of the fight. She blushed and posed with cute cat paws, thanking him happily and calling him a loyal subject indeed, while the chat warned that the forum was about to catch fire. Sure enough, the real fight gallery exploded with posts questioning if the newbie had actually caught a bullet or if it was just top-tier acting. Other players commented that they tried to copy her and ended up piercing their own hands, while martial artists admitted they could not perform such a feat at her age. Some users joked that she might be an old master who achieved body rejuvenation, while others laughed at the theory. Meanwhile, a hand typed on a keyboard, noting that she was an impressive young lady who reminded them of the cult leader in her youth. Other users instantly recognized the commenter as a notorious lunatic who spammed the forums. In a dark room, a masked woman with long blue hair typed furiously, easily dismissing the bullet-catching feat and demanding to know the girl's honorary title. She typed a warning that she would pay the newbie a visit, but when she saw the girl's stream name was simply the Heavenly Demon, her manic eye twitched with absolute fury. She roared that a mere child was trying to claim the sky, while other users joked that they had successfully hit her trigger button. The masked lunatic immediately started spamming that the cult leader was still alive, prompting other users to call her a famous troll with mental issues. The next day, our favorite streamer launched her Day 3 outdoor broadcast, welcoming her 58 followers with cute cat paws in a lush forest. Her stats had skyrocketed to a peak of 152 viewers, and she watched in thrill as the viewer count rapidly hit 200 before the stream even started. Hakosika13 sent another 10,000 cookies, congratulating her on the clip hitting it big again. She gasped in shock and thanked him enthusiastically. But as she stared at her screen, she recalled a nagging fellow from her past who used to help her similarly, silently wishing they were still alive. Suddenly, the notorious forum troll entered the chat, spamming furious threats and demanding to know how she dared to use the title of the Heavenly Demon. Our streamer looked completely baffled, and the chat warned her that the troll was a famous Persona player in the martial arts world. To shut him up, she asked Seeker if he was present, and immediately appointed him as her daily stream manager. Seeker accepted instantly and restricted the troll's chat for 60 seconds, prompting viewers to praise the manager's incredibly fast hands. A viewer named Punk Peeman donated 1,000 cookies, asking where she was streaming from. She spread her arms to showcase the beautiful forest, explaining that she prepared this outdoor stream because she thought they would like it. The chat immediately noticed the background, pointing out massive wild ginseng plants and rare blood chrysanthemums growing freely like weeds. The troll tried to spam another threat, but was instantly chat restricted again. She noted that the viewers were right to find the place strange and asked if there were any martial artists in the audience. When several viewers raised their hands, she asked if they remembered the world's greatest, the scary cult leader of the demonic cult. She quickly corrected them, explaining his sect was actually the Sun and Moon divine cult. The chat joked about the rumors surrounding him, claiming he had horns and drank blood instead of water. She got sweat-dropped and deeply annoyed, insisting she did not have horns and did not drink blood. When asked who would win between the Heavenly Demon and the Night King, she smirked happily, but the chat noted that the legendary leader had tragically died during the Great Cataclysm. Her expression went serious, and she turned to the camera, declaring that the person did not actually die. When the chat asked how she could possibly know that, she put on a majestic, powerful stance and shouted that she was none other than the cult leader himself, Chi Yurang. The chat instantly erupted with endless waves of laughter, mocking her claim as a cute roleplay. The trolls spammed another laugh before getting restricted again, and the viewers joked that they would believe her if she mailed them a wild ginseng. She grit her teeth in frustration, realizing no one would ever believe a cute girl was the terrifying Heavenly Demon. She recalled searching the community archives, only to find posts claiming the cult was wiped out in the Valley of Death during the Cataclysm. She decided to head to a high place to see the true nature of this cursed island from above, ignoring viewers who wondered why a cursed island would be filled with rare spiritual herbs. Reaching the cliffside, she parted the grass and showed them the panoramic view of the island, which featured active volcanoes, snowy mountains, and lightning storms coexisting under a red sky. The chat was completely stunned, apologizing for doubting her. Suddenly, two giant, dangerous rank 2 magic beasts crawled out of the trees, terrifying the viewers. She admitted she knew nothing about the island, despite living there for 10 years, and asked if anyone knew its true name. As lightning cracked behind her, she checked the chat, only to find a viewer asking if this was the demonic realm. Suddenly, her real-time statistics showed her peak viewers hit over 300. Meanwhile, in a dark alleyway, the defeated gunslinger Samdol knelt on the floor, shivering in terror before his boss. The leader scolded him for getting beaten by a kid, grounding him from using weapons. The assassination squad vice leader, Pengdeok Jo, asked what they should do next, and the terrifying group leader, Bloodflower Sword Nam Dusik, stood up. Dusik declared that he could not let anyone touch his family, and demanded to know the name of the girl who defeated Samdol. When Samdol revealed her name was Heavenly Demon Jung, Dusik's eyes narrowed, whispering that the name of the Heavenly Demon was not something that could be used lightly. Back in her dark room, the blue-haired lunatic typed frantically, spamming her manic messages and grinning deviously as she vowed to completely erase the newcomer. The screen then transitioned to the flashy host Snowwagon, who welcomed everyone with a salute, introducing himself as the meddlesome guide. He announced that today they would learn about the demonic realm, which was discovered beyond a rift at the very beginning of the Great Cataclysm. He explained that the first discoverer was a mage named Malin, who ran away from a horde of demonic beasts and recklessly jumped into a rift to escape. She woke up face down in a gorgeous field of purple flowers, realizing she had arrived at an unknown land where precious herbs and fruits were scattered everywhere. Believing she was saved, she celebrated her luck, but quickly realized she was completely screwed because the island was actually swarming with danger level 3 demonic beasts. Fortunately, she managed to jump back through a reopening rift, bringing some precious elixirs with her. Scholars analyzed the soil on her shoes and discovered an insane atmospheric mana concentration of 0.0819 parts per million, which was 30 times higher than where they lived. They speculated that the bizarre ecology was a magical phenomenon caused by mana, though people today remained completely divided on whether the demonic realm actually existed. Snowwagon signed off, advising everyone not to jump into rifts, and our hero watched the screen, finding the explanation interesting, but noting that the name was a bit bleak. The chat pointed out that Danger Level 1 beasts required someone at the level of the 9 heroes to defeat, and asked how she was still alive. Holding her plate of food, she scoffed, asking what they meant since she had not met any threatening beasts so far. She admitted it was uncertain if she was in that legendary demonic realm, but she found it hopeful that someone had escaped it before. She decided to investigate during her outdoor broadcast. The stream overlay announced Day 4, featuring a slightly more expensive Dongpo pork mukbang and some exciting virtual reality action. The chat welcomed her as a resident of the demonic realm, and she offered a polite welcome, prompting the viewers to tease her about her traditional tone. She announced they would start with the food show, featuring a plate of dongpo pork worth a whopping 150,000 cookies. Chat joked about her immense love for pork, asking if she held a grudge against pigs. Looking at the glistening meat, she noted it was much more expensive than her first order and had to be more delicious. She recalled seeing premium dongpo pork selling for 1 million cookies at high-end restaurants. Wondering if it tasted better than the food made by her cult's head chef, she pressed her hand against the screen with a wistful look, promising herself she would eat that premium pork one day, while Chat laughed at her dramatic expression. Taking a massive bite, she shed tears of joy, screaming that it was absolutely delicious. Chat laughed at her for swallowing without chewing, noting she looked happiest when eating. Staring at the juicy pork on her chopsticks, she read a chat message telling her to eat slowly, since no one was going to steal it. She sadly murmured that she wished someone would steal it and eat it because she was always alone here, making the chat feel slightly bad. Suddenly, a system notification popped up, showing she had 2 unchecked whispers. She opened them and found a message from the masked forum troll, calling her a young and immature thing, and asking if she even knew whose name she was claiming. She sighed, realizing the annoying troll was back. The whisper continued with a bet. If the troll lost, she would sponsor 10 million cookies, but if she won, our favorite grandmaster had to change her stream name. Smiling smugly with her arms crossed, she wondered if the troll was a complete psychopath for offering such a ridiculous amount. She decided to ignore it and opened the second whisper, which was from the assassination squad. The message warned her that blood was thicker than water, and that they would pay her back with blood for blood, showing the scarred Namdo Sik and his gang. Confused, she asked the chat if anyone knew what the assassination squad was. Chat asked why she was asking, and she explained they sent her a threat, claiming she insulted their family member. Chat realized Punk Peeman must have snitched, but laughed hysterically when they realized the squad was threatening to pay back blood with blood, teasingly calling them the Pea Squad instead. She smiled smugly, noting that whether they were the Sticky Rice Squad or the Pea Squad, the reaction was great and the content was rolling in on its own. She put on her VR headset and announced they were heading straight to part 2. Entering the virtual world, she logged in with a record of 4 wins and 0 losses, though she was still unranked. Clenching her fist, she grumbled that she had to raise her tier to meet strong opponents since fighting gunslingers was incredibly boring. Chat explained that guns were cheap and cyberware was where the real power was, as high-ranking players spent a fortune on bodily modifications. She looked forward to the challenge, hoping she would not be disappointed by nobodies. She noted she only needed to play 2 more rounds to unlock ranked games, hoping to reach the highest peak. Chat asked if she was going for the realm beyond realms, and she raised her hand, confirming her goal, while Chat told her to dream big. She noted that the road ahead was long but would not take much time, as her opponents were already waiting in line. Meanwhile, in the real world, the gang members of the assassination squad ordered their fighters to keep spamming duel requests until she accepted. A pink-haired brawler named Dasik matched with her, and the boss ordered her to teach the brat a lesson. Chi Yurang accepted the duel request from Chinese restaurant napkin serial thief. In the arena, Dasik mocked her, asking if she really caught a bullet with her bare hands. Loading a massive heavy multi-barrel minigun, Dasik counted down, explaining that this 10 rounds per second weapon was a completely different beast. As the match began, Dasik screamed and unleashed a devastating barrage of bullets. A rain of golden bullets flew toward our hero, but she stood completely calm. Moving like a blur, she deflected the barrage with ease, catching multiple bullets in her hands with purple energy trails. With a powerful swing of her arm, she reflected the force back at the brawler, knocking her back with a massive blast. In the real world, Dasik fell off her chair onto the floor, screaming in agony and pulling off her VR headset. The system announced our hero's victory, leaving the chat completely stunned. Dasik asked what happened, and Dasik sweated in terror, stammering that she fired properly, but the opponent used some dirty trick. The other thugs grumbled on screen, claiming the brat must have used an expensive artifact since she was seen eating elixirs like side dishes. Chi Yurang yawned, asking if there was no one else because it was too boring. This immediately triggered another thug named Public Bathhouse Shoe Rack Destroyer, who accepted the next duel and fired his assault rifle wildly. She blocked it with ease, prompting next duel requests from Elevator Stealth Silent Fart and 108 Bows at Church. The thugs collapsed one by one in real life, screaming in pain as they were brutally defeated. The chat was in absolute awe, declaring the Heavenly Demon to be the ultimate idol of all martial artists. The viewers mocked the P Squad for their embarrassing streak of losses, prompting Dasik to complain about the cyberbullying. Dejected, Drastic offered to try one more time, but the massive, scarred vice leader stood up. Peng Deok-jo of the Hebei Peng clan turned around with his red aura burning, declaring that they could not let the squad's reputation fall any further, and promised to step up personally. Adjusting his VR headset, he realized she was no ordinary kid, wondering if she was hiding an artifact, cyberware, or magic, while Chi Yurang smugly pointed a finger, noting that if he did not give his all, he would lose. Suddenly, the screen flashed with a promotion notice, moving her from iron directly to bronze. She raised her arms happily, asking everyone to congratulate her, while the chat went wild over how fast she climbed. Viewer low-level Campistroyer donated 10,000 cookies, pointing out several silvers were in that last squad, and Hakosika 13 congratulated her too. She hit them with the cute cat pose, thanking them in character. A challenge popped up from low-level Campistroyer, who was a gold rank. Chi Yurang wondered what a gold rank meant, realizing it equated to a late second-rate or early first-rate martial artist, basically a low-level sword expert who could use mana. Then, a warning message popped up for a massive tear gap challenge from Chudgum Destroyer, and she asked if this was different. The chat warned her that beating a gold would promote her to silver instantly, but noted gold was on a completely different level. Gamer Blogger donated 1,000 cookies, reminding everyone she started just 2 days ago, but she calmly pressed accept, while a viewer joked that their kid caught bullets, so it was fine. Peng Deok-jo entered the arena, telling her she made him wait a long time, introducing himself as the vice-captain of the assassination squad. Chi Yurang recognized the Hebei Peng clan, and when he asked if she met anyone from his clan, she dropped the name Ho-yun. Deok-jo froze in shock, asking if she meant the clan head Peng Ho-yun. She smirked, asking if he was doing well. Deok-jo flew into a rage, demanding how she dared to joke about the deceased. The chat sighed, noting she desecrated the dead, explaining the head passed during the Great Cataclysm. Chi Yurang found it a shame, recalling him as a cheerful fellow. Deok-jo clenched his fist, explaining the head died protecting his clan from demonic beasts to the very end, and she quietly thought that was an end fitting for Ho-yun. Deok-jo drew his blade, screaming at her to shut her mouth and stop throwing the name around. He ranted that even if their mana burned and members scattered, the spirit of the Hebei Peng clan had not fallen, prompting the chat to joke that everything else fell except their spirit. She scratched her head, wondering why he was throwing a fit since Ho-yun did not mind. Deok-jo yelled at her to brace herself, bragging that people called him Trash Peng Deok-jo because he had cut down grandparents, women and children to survive. Chi Yurang stared, wondering if he was seriously bragging about that, while Hakosika 13 sent a donation explaining he used a tyrannical saber technique, estimated to be early first-rate, famous for stupid quotes like Bitcoin is a safe asset. The chat cringed at his depravity, but Deok-jo charged, aiming to finish her in one strike. He stomped down with his Mountain King's reigning step, cracking the floor, and swung his giant glowing blade in a white tiger's soul-severing strike. Chi Yurang stood completely calm, dodging the blow easily. With a quick movement of her hand, she blasted him with a secret technique. Deok-jo flew back, spitting blood, completely shocked that she used the Peng clan's very own primordial lightning palm bare-handed. Walking away, her robes flowing, the Grandmaster calmly remarked that there was hesitation in his blade, and to hesitate meant he was still alive. Deok-jo collapsed face down, grumbling about her bullshit philosophy, but she gently added that Ho-yun's death was not his fault, and that the clan head would have told him to shake off his delusions to move forward. Deok-jo cried silent tears as he passed out, and she smiled, thinking she had discovered a rare wildflower. The system declared her the winner, promoting her to silver. The chat exploded with hype, and donors Nurungji Jame, Mini Chokoride, and Hakosika 13 showered her with 71,000 cookies. She did her cute cat pose again, boasting that silver was nothing special and that she would soon have enough for the million-cookie Dongpo pork. Suddenly, a challenge notification popped up from a Grandmaster user named Long Live the Heavenly Demon. She gasped in shock, while the chat noted a Grandmaster was 4 tiers above Peng Deok-jo. She recognized the username, and Hakosika 13 donated to remind her that this was the obsessive troll who kept spamming her chat to change her name. The chat wondered how a Grandmaster could be a trolling bastard, and she asked what a Grandmaster was. Chat explained that Diamond was around a Swordmaster, which meant Grandmaster was similar to the peak stage. She recalled the troll's malicious spam about the cult leader being alive, realizing the true believers of her cult would never proselytize in such a disgraceful way. She wondered if the troll was a survivor of her cult, perhaps a left or right envoy, or one of the 4 heavenly kings. She decided she would only know once she met him and accepted the challenge. The chat panicked, but the arena instantly shifted. The sky turned to night as massive temple doors with blue runes creaked open, releasing a thick blue mist. A figure clad in traditional shoes stepped out, and Qi Yurang asked if he was long live the Heavenly Demon. The masked Grandmaster, sporting a silver falcon-style mask, stood before her with glowing eyes, whispering that they finally met and praising her for not running away. Qi Yurang stared back, noting that while the stranger spoke with a neutral voice, it did not sound natural at all. She deduced that the opponent was either using a voice-altering martial art or relying on a high-tech artifact, but realized that his distinct habits and mannerisms could not be hidden. Confident in her skills, she decided she would find out exactly who he was and what level he had reached once they clashed. The masked challenger pointed out their bet, reminding her that if he won, she had to change her stream title. She calmly countered, asking if he had prepared the 10 million cookies, but he scoffed, declaring he had absolutely no intention of losing. When she noticed he was unarmed and asked where his weapon was, his hands began glowing with a bright blue flame as he boasted that bare hands were more than enough to deal with a child. The system began the countdown, and as the fight officially started, the Grandmaster lunged forward, leaving a trail of brilliant blue energy behind him. He vanished from sight with a blinding burst of speed, leaving the chat completely baffled as they asked where he went. But as Qi Yurang watched his fluid, freezing movements, her eyes went wide in shock as she recognized the footwork. She gasped, realizing the movement was none other than the 7 Blessings footwork. Suddenly, the masked challenger tripped over his own feet, falling flat on his face and sliding miserably across the stone floor while letting out a muffled cry. The chat went wild with confusion, wondering if it was some kind of sound-based martial art and laughing that it was the first time they had ever seen a Grandmaster eat dirt. The fallen challenger looked up in absolute shock, desperately asking who she really was. Standing over him, she smugly answered that she was simply Heavenly Demon Chan. Sweat dropping, the troll hurriedly denied being anyone named 7 Blessings, but she leaned in closer, asking why he seemed so incredibly shaken. In her mind, she was absolutely certain of his identity, because she could never forget that distinctive gliding footwork that looked like moving across ice. It was a technique she had personally designed and advised him on. She remembered him as a frail boy whose body was cursed by cold yin energy, a child who was never expected to survive past his youth, but managed to overcome fate itself. He had followed her at a single word, chasing after her with everything he had to become her most trusted retainer and younger brother. Smiling warmly, the Grandmaster whispered that she was glad he was alive, but the masked challenger panicked, desperately denying it and asking why she kept playing games. Suddenly, he clutched his chest in agonizing pain as red static energy crackled from his heart, groaning that the name 7 Blessings was abandoned long ago. A terrible nightmare flashed in his mind, taking him back 10 years to the tragic day the Great Cataclysm began. He remembered the temple burning under a blood-red sky, with commanders screaming to establish defensive formations and hold the main hall until the cult leader arrived. He recalled the horrifying monsters rampaging through their sacred home, tearing cultists to pieces as they cried out to the heavens for their leader to save them. The survivors had run through the flames, desperately asking if their leader had truly abandoned them or if he had died in battle. He remembered the heavenly strategist urging the survivors to escape and preserve their future, while other members screamed that the leader had abandoned them. Ever since that horrific day when monsters flooded the world, a terrible heart demon had plagued his mind, whispering constantly that his beloved master had abandoned them all. For 10 years, Dam Wallin had locked himself in a dark room, curled up on the floor in absolute despair, fighting against that sanity-shattering heart demon while repeating that the leader was still alive. Back in the present, Qi Yurang noticed his state and gently asked if he was unwell, noting that he did not look good. He snapped out of his trance and screamed at her to never speak that name again, holding his head as purple and black energy swirled violently around him. He realized that hearing that name had made his heart demon twice as bad. Gripping his chest, the challenger stood up and warned her to listen carefully, revealing that he was a former member of the Heavenly Demon cult. He proudly declared that he once held the position of Heavenly Strategist within the Sun and Moon Divine cult, introducing himself as Dam Wallin, the Heavenly Smoke Black Feather. The Quitch chat instantly exploded in absolute shock, with viewers screaming that a legendary figure of the demonic cult was actually alive. Some viewers wondered what was happening, while others explained that he was the brain of the cult and the closest aide to the Heavenly Demon, possessing enough power to easily beat up most modern sect leaders. Looking completely unbothered by his status, Chi Yurang listened as Dam Wallin pointed a finger at her. He admitted he originally intended to punish her for using the sacred name, but offered to show mercy and leave peacefully if she changed her username. Our favorite Grandmaster offered a faint, knowing smile as he warned her that he had no desire to kill a young girl. She stared back silently before offering a simple, blunt response, telling him no thanks. Dam Wallin lost his temper, lunging forward with a terrifying look as he realized he had to unleash his power or risk suffering chi deviation. The chat panicked, realizing they were actually dueling and fearing he would kill her. He flew through the air, spinning with a heavy blue light trail, and reached out with a glowing palm strike. But Chi Yurang casually stepped aside, letting his massive strike miss her by a mere inch. She glided backwards on the digital floor, moving in perfect, effortless sync with his movements, and elegantly slapped his arm aside. Dam Wallin gasped in shock, and a peaceful memory flashed in his mind, taking him back to a quiet night under a pavilion. He remembered drinking cold fire mixed with moonlight, while his master warned him that even good liquor had to be enjoyed in moderation. He remembered sadly asking what was wrong with a dying man having a few drinks, admitting he was cursed with a weak body and lacked the talent to ever learn martial arts. He had told his master to abandon him, but the Grandmaster had stopped, drawn his sword under the full moon, and offered him a beautiful gift. It was a unique sword dance designed specifically for a weak-bodied child lacking talent, known as the 12 Forms of the Gentle Sword. Under the bright moonlight, the master had promised to become the cult leader and ordered the crying boy to follow him to the absolute peak. Dam Wallin had cried tears of gratitude, realizing his master accepted him despite his weakness. Back in the virtual arena, our hero moved her hands in an elegant, nostalgic gesture, calling forth a massive vortex of blue wind as she recited the sacred scripture. She whispered that when the cult leader gazed down, the moon was hidden behind clouds, and without a word, he called down thunder like a sacred bell. As the digital clouds parted, a massive divine pillar of blue lightning and moon energy descended from the sky. Slicing through the air, she completed the technique as the scripture declared that beneath the moonlight, mountains and rivers shone brightly, and all darkness retreated. The massive blast of energy shattered Dam Wallin's mask into pieces, sending him to his knees. Looking up with tears streaming down his face, he stared at her gentle smile as the glorious silhouette of his original master appeared behind her. He cried out in absolute desperate joy, calling her his brother and asking if it was truly him. Standing under the glowing moon, she looked down with a warm, proud smile and confirmed that it was indeed his brother, telling him that it had been a very long time. 7 blessings. Under the brilliant full moon, the two long-lost comrades sat side by side on the traditional temple roof. She teased him, noting that he had aged quite a bit, and he looked back in shock, asking if she had undergone body rejuvenation to become so young. She casually smirked, replying that it just sort of happened. He sweat dropped, pointing out that body rejuvenation was not exactly something that just happened, but smiled warmly and admitted he was glad to see that part of her had not changed at all. When she asked what he meant by that, he explained he was referring to how she could pull off something completely mind-blowing and just talk about it like it was nothing. He recalled her legacy as the third young master of the divine cult, who was originally deemed the weakest competitor because she did not have a powerful maternal family backing her like the others. Yet, at the age of 20, she defeated all her fierce rivals and proudly ascended to the throne of cult leader. By 30, she became only the second person in the cult's history to receive the title of Heavenly Demon. By 40, she brought the entire world to its knees as the strongest cult leader in history. Everyone bowed in absolute submission before the absolute best in the world, the Heavenly Demon, Chi Yurang. He looked at her cute, yawning chibi face and admitted that after the Great Cataclysm, no one could have ever imagined she would vanish for a decade only to return one day as a pretty girl. He desperately asked her to explain what exactly had happened. Resting her cheek in her hand, she looked away and explained that becoming a pretty girl was the only way she could meet him. He was completely horrified, asking if she had truly been surviving in that hellish demonic realm all by herself for 10 years, and if she really started streaming using broadcasting equipment she just happened to find. She shrugged, admitting she was not entirely sure if the island was indeed the demonic realm, but confirmed that was exactly how it happened. Tears of pure devotion poured from his eyes as he clenched his fist, lamenting that she had been fighting a lonely battle while he fell prey to his own heart demon. She admitted that it was not easy to endure and had been a very rough time. He sweat dropped, wondering what kind of terrible place the demonic realm was for her to say that much, and she tiredly explained that the loneliness, the boredom of being left completely alone, and the utterly tasteless monster meat made it the absolute worst. She looked down seriously, reminding him that she was born a woman but raised as a man due to a quack doctor advising her parents that acting like a man would help balance her strong yin energy. Regardless, on the day she took him in, they had sworn an oath of brotherhood, and she smiled, asking if the title of sworn brothers or sworn siblings really mattered. She insisted that even though he was an old man now and she had become a pretty girl, nothing changed. Dam Wallin immediately bowed on his knees, vowing to continue serving her as his brother. She smiled and thanked the punk. He looked up, curiously asking if it was okay to show this emotional side of him on stream, but she gestured with her finger, revealing that she had already turned the stream off, right when his heart demon was about to consume him, because she could not let her Dongpo Pork Squad see something so scary. He looked completely baffled, wondering what a Dongpo Pork Squad was, but she told him not to worry, explaining that if she turned the stream back on tomorrow and acted cute, claiming it cut out by mistake, the viewers would let it slide. Getting back to business, she asked what happened during the cataclysm, as she had heard the cult landed in a terrible location. His sweat dropped in deep sorrow, explaining that the cult had literally fallen right into a nest of demonic beasts. The monsters had trampled over their manor and devoured everyone, collapsing the cult without a trace like a living nightmare. She asked if anyone else survived, and he gritted his teeth, admitting that as far as he knew, he was the only one who made it out of that hellscape alive. When she asked about the left and right messengers of light and the 4 heavenly kings, he sadly replied, they most likely perished. He explained that over the years, he had roamed message boards praising the cult leader to find survivors, but since no one ever agreed with his posts, he was sure he was the only one left. Our hero stared at him blankly, making him sweat drop, and ask why she was looking at him like that. She looked away, realization hitting her. She thought he was typing out his heart demon due to madness, but realized it was just his embarrassing way of searching for survivors. However, she knew that if people had ignored his posts out of second-hand embarrassment, it was entirely possible more survivors were out there. She looked at him and reminded him that the Sun and Moon Divine cult was no more. He sadly agreed, but she smiled proudly, declaring they would be reborn under a glorious new name. When he asked how that was possible, with only the 2 of them left, she stood up, asking if she was not the divine cult itself. She stretched out her hand, promising to start over from scratch, casting away the sun from their name. Standing elegantly under the moon, she declared that because the elegant moonlight was what shone upon her when she was lonely, she would name their new sect the Moonlight Divine Cult. Dam Wallin fell to his knees in tears of pure ecstasy, crying out that 10,000 demons would bow in submission to the Heavenly Demon. Meanwhile, in the dark woods of the real world, the boss of the assassination squad, Nam Do-sik, walked through the trees with his sword drawn, wearing his Hawaiian shirt. Suddenly, he clashed blades with a hooded rival in a flash of blue light, brutally slicing him down. Standing over the bleeding corpse, Do-sik yelled that the rival was a disgrace to their family, telling him to get lost while he was still asking nicely, prompting the hooded thug to run into the shadows. Do-sik lowered his sword, sweating and shaking with anger, wondering why he had still not caught up to his brother and why the wall he needed to surpass always took his brother's shape. Suddenly, Do-sik ran up to him out of breath, and when he asked if another syndicate was attacking, she cried out that they had lost everything to the brat who caught bullets, Heavenly Demon Jang. She explained they took turns attacking but were completely crushed. Do-sik frowned, asking what happened to Deokjo, and Do-sik's sweat dripped in terror, screaming that brother Deokjo had lost as well. She shook her hands, explaining that Deokjo was a gold-rank powerhouse, yet they could not even figure out what trick the brat used. Do-sik smirked deviously, realizing Heavenly Demon Jang was not just a name. Do-sik begged him to step up, and he drew his sword, telling her to keep it down since he would handle it. She celebrated, bragging that the brat would be nothing but a newborn pup, but Do-sik grumbled in his mind, asking why she was bragging about getting beat up in one hit. He flared his red aura, warning those guns to never call themselves the Assassination Squad again, as the caption introduced him as the squad boss, Bloodflower Sword Nam Do-sik. The next day, our favorite Grand Master launched her Day 5 stream, titled Moonlight Divine Cult, and told everyone to say hello. She pointed up, announcing that starting today, the Grand Master Troll would be acting as the manager of the channel. The manager typed a threat in chat, warning them that if anyone spouted nonsense, he would slice them with his silver moderator sword. The chat went wild with confusion, asking why the stream had cut out yesterday, and the manager ordered them to stop chattering and become believers of the Moonlight Divine Cult. Hakoseeker13 cried in chat, asking if he was not good enough to be the manager, but Chi Yurang relaxed in her chair, explaining the new manager was just an old acquaintance. The chat was shocked to realize she knew the legendary Heavenly Smoke Black Feather, but the manager ordered them to silence themselves and repeat the name Divine Cult. Chi Yurang smirkingly thought that the chat was a total shit show as expected, and typed an order for them to knock it off. The manager instantly obeyed, calling her cult leader, which sent the chat into another frenzy, wondering if she was the Heavenly Demon's hidden daughter. She noticed her live viewers had shot up to 323, realizing yesterday's duel had been clipped and went viral. Deciding it was the perfect moment, she slammed her hand on the desk, calling for attention, and announced her 3 grand objectives. When the chat asked for her roadmap, she announced her first objective was to become the #1 streamer on Twitch. The chat laughed, noting she had to beat Yoon Tae-yang, who had nearly 100 million followers. Her second objective was to reach the realm beyond realms in Refi. The chat mocked her goals again, but in the background, Dam Wallin smiled, recalling how everyone used to mock his master in the past, only to fall dead silent once he took the throne. Chi Yurang smiled smugly, declaring she did not make empty promises and would prove it with her actions. Dusik watched her stream on his phone, smiling smugly as she declared that actions always spoke louder than words. Finally, she pointed her finger with glowing purple eyes, proudly announcing her third objective was to make the Divine Cult great again, leaving the chat in absolute hysterical disbelief, while a tattered flag of the old cult lay buried in the background rubble. She calmly explained that it used to be the Sun and Moon Divine Cult, but she changed the name and rebuilt it as the Moonlight Divine Cult. She assured them it was still the same elite cult led by her, prompting her manager Dam Wallin to instantly spam their registration link in the chat. The viewers laughed, calling it a hilarious gimmick, though some admitted they were low-key tempted to join since she was the leader. She welcomed everyone, telling them registration was always open and to apply in droves. She casually added that she would also gradually look into ways to escape her cursed island, which made the chat realize they were watching an actual communication stream. When she checked if 7 Blessings heard her, Dam Wallin typed that of course he did. The chat laughed at his ridiculous name, but he instantly restricted them for 60 seconds in a display of pure mod power. The system tasked him with researching escape methods before the next stream, and the loyal strategist happily agreed, promising to prepare a killer presentation. Chi Yurang then turned to her Dongpo Pork Squad, asking them to speak up if they had any good ideas for the stream, but she was instantly overwhelmed by a barrage of chaotic suggestions demanding she play horror games, raise a pet demonic beast, or dig up and sell elixirs from her yard. She held up her hands, telling them to hold on, while Dam Wallin ordered the viewers to post their ideas on the cult's official fan cafe message board instead, dropping another registration link. Hakoseeker13 cried in chat, asking if he needed to prepare a presentation too, but she smiled and told him to just manage the chat well like he was already doing, which made him type back in absolute joy. Meanwhile, in the real world, Namdusik looked at his phone and called out to Deokjo, asking if it was true that he was brutally crushed by a little kid. Deokjo blushed with embarrassment, grumbling about who said it was brutal, only for the young thug Samdol to proudly admit he was the snitch. Deokjo turned on him in a fury, but Dusik glared through the dark room with his glowing red eyes, ordering him to stop taking it out on the youngest and confirm if it was true. Deokjo looked down, sweating as he admitted it was true. Dusik pocketed his phone, declaring he would handle the brat, but Deokjo stopped him, asking if he was going to challenge her right away. Dusik adjusted his headset, asking what if he was, which made Deokjo gulp in anxiety. In his mind, Deokjo knew his boss was a powerhouse on the verge of the peak stage, but he shuddered at the worst-case scenario where the cute kid somehow defeated Dusik too. Realizing they could not afford any errors, Deokjo pointed out that the kid was probably silver, so she would decline a challenge from a platinum rank boss, since their tiers were worlds apart. Samdol chimed in, lecturing that the difference was actually heaven and earth, earning an immediate shout to shut up from Deokjo. Deokjo suggested that since he was demoted to silver after getting wrecked, he should create a room and invite her, which would trick her into accepting before the boss entered to fight. Samdal and Dasik cheered, praising the trashy trick, and Deokjo smugly adjusted his collar, noting a newbie would easily fall for it. Dusik agreed, ordering them to set the stage. Deokjo promised to set up a room with their gang acting as spectators, and Sandal advised him to keep it slick, sick, and simple, earning another shout to shut up from Deokjo. Drastic told them to do whatever they wanted and walked out for some fresh air, while the thugs bowed, leaving Deokjo looking completely exhausted. Back in virtual reality, our hero received a system message announcing the point calculation for her last match was finally complete. She realized the calculation had been delayed due to the massive tier difference, but the system confirmed there were no issues and instantly poured points into her account, promoting her from silver directly to gold. She cheered in absolute delight, while the chat went wild, wondering how a streamer could jump a whole tier in one match and asking if she secretly beat the legendary strategist after turning off the stream yesterday. Some trolls accused her of win trading, but Hakosika 13 furiously defended her, pointing out Quitch's strict rules. Looking at her new gold rank, she asked her manager what happened to him, and he cryingly typed that he got demoted 2 tiers down to diamond. She dramatically offered her condolences, and he confidently promised to recover his rank in no time. Suddenly, an invite popped up from Chew Gum Destroyer, who was currently a silver. She scoffed, asking how a mere silver scrub dared to interrupt her, and declined the invite, prompting the chat to realize the scrub was actually the demoted Pengdaok Joe. In real life, Deokjo went completely red with rage, screaming that he was originally gold and could easily rank up if he wanted to. Drastic pointed out that she was just a rookie who barely made it to silver, but as she declined the invite again, Deokjo screamed in frustration. Sandal checked his monitor, sweat dropping as he announced the brat had actually beat a grandmaster next. Deokjo froze in absolute disbelief, clenching his teeth as he realized this was not part of their plan. Sandal suggested they just boldly tell her to fight their boss, explaining that because her goal was the realm beyond realms, she would not fight anyone with a lower tier, since it barely gave any points. He argued that if they baited her with a juicy platinum player, she would definitely accept. Deokjo agreed, and they sent a whisper telling her they had a plat ready. Chi Yurang's eyes sparkled at the mention of a plat, and she accepted the invite, entering the portal while screaming happily for the platinum points to come out. Deokjo was shocked that the plan actually worked, and Sandal proudly bragged about his clever mind. Entering the arena, she demanded to know where the plat was, calling Deokjo a silver scrub and asking why iron, bronze, and silver mongrels were loitering around as spectators. Deokjo grumbled at her tone, but told her not to be on guard, claiming the guys were just spectators. The chat laughed, warning her it was an obvious trap. Deokjo stepped forward, drawing his saber, and claimed he wanted to address their last match, claiming he only lost because he let his guard down. As the other gang members quietly surrounded her, Deokjo claimed he needed a rematch to prove his spirit was not broken. The chat mocked his lack of fair play, but in his mind, Deokjo smirked, knowing he stood no chance in a fair fight. His actual genius plan was to beg her in whispers to let him win, and then jump her the moment she dropped her guard. She received his whisper begging to let him save face as the second in command, and she explained the situation to the chat. When viewers warned her to report him, she sweetly remarked that she understood his position as a group leader and agreed to exchange a few blows to save his reputation as a fellow martial artist. The chat praised her good heart, and the fight officially began. Suddenly, Deokjo screamed for everyone to jump her, and the system countdown hit 0. The thugs poured out everything, firing rocket launchers, miniguns, and pistols all at once. A devastating barrage of rockets and bullets flew toward her, but our hero stood completely still and unfazed. Suddenly, a viewer named Benedict Unit Deployment sponsored a mission, offering 100,000 cookies if she won within 1 minute. Deokjo's face went pale with terror as a massive shockwave of purple power erupted from her. The divine blast sent the entire gang flying through the air, screaming in agony as she raised her fist, unleashing her absolute dominance like a true god of war.